Welcome to CompuScholar's Professional Development webinar for January of 2026. Today we have the fun task of sharing some details about our new Web Design 2026 edition. This is the first time we've made any public announcement about the new 2026 edition, and it's slated for release for the fall of 2026. In this webinar, we'll talk about some of the differences between the new edition and the current edition and give you a sneak peek at the new materials. Our current web design course has been around for 10 plus years and has taught thousands of students to code in HTML and CSS in that time. And as it's grown organically over the years, we've taken careful notes about some of the things that we would eventually like to do differently or better, primarily revolving around solving some of the logistical challenges that teachers might face as they go through the course. One of the things you may know about the current course is that students do all of their work offline in text editors. So they'll use Notepad on Windows or TextEdit on Mac and similar tools on Chromebooks. Once students have verified their files in offline, they'll upload those files to our system, and then the teachers will manually grade those projects. The current first semester is built around a long-running project called Raptors, so students will contribute small parts to that project as they go through chapter by chapter. And in the second semester, they do something similar with the Aquamaniacs project. In our new 2026 edition, we have made some general content updates where needed, so we might rephrase or reword some of the lessons, we might rearrange or resequence some of the content for clarity and flow, but we do still cover the same fundamental skills, and we cover all the same state requirements. So if the course was previously approved in a state as meeting 100% of those state requirements, then again, it would still meet 100% of those requirements in the new edition. One of the biggest changes is that students will now be able to work online and save files into our cloud. So they won't be working with offline text editors. The experience will be much like our Java and C# and Python courses, where students can type code directly into a web browser. They can save and view their work online. So there's no local file management. So this should be a pretty significant simplification of the student experience. When students are working online, our IDE has automatic error checking, color highlighting, and code completion, just like other modern integrated development environments. So this should be a significant improvement over the plain text editors like Notepad and TextEdit. We've also completely replaced the Raptors and Aquamaniacs projects. What we found with those long-running projects is if students got out of sync or they fell behind, sometimes it was difficult for them to catch up and get back in sync with the requirements from chapter to chapter. So in the new edition, every chapter will have a uniquely themed individual project that does not rely on any of their prior work. They will certainly reuse many of the same skills, but again, they're going to start fresh in each chapter with a new project that has a certain theme, and that should add a lot of flexibility and interest to the course. And I've saved the best for last and put it in all caps with plenty of exclamation points. We do now feature automatic grading of the projects. So we figured out how to inspect the student's DOM tree, how to inspect the CSS rules that they've set up, and we'll automatically grade those things just like we do in our Java, C#, and Python classes. We don't have a firm release date at this point, but the new course will certainly be available for students in the fall of 2026, and we anticipate teachers will be able to review the new materials sometime over the summer of 2026. And naturally, the prior web design course will still be available online upon request if somebody wants that for some particular reason, but we anticipate most folks will flock to the new edition pretty quickly. Okay, I know you're chomping at the bit and you want to take a look at the new course, so let's switch over to our system and I'll give you a sneak peek. All right, I've logged into our system and we're taking a look at our new web design course. Again, this is a sneak peek, so anything that you see here is subject to change, but this will give you a substantially good idea what the new course will look like. As we scroll slowly down the chapter list, you'll see many familiar chapters. Again, it's the same basic content, the same basic skills. We have moved things around a little bit. We have adjusted a few things for flow and clarity. Let's go ahead and dive into one of the chapters. And let's open up one of the new lesson text pages. The first thing that I'll point out about the new lesson text pages is that we now have the vocabulary pop-ups in the same way that we do for many of our other courses. So as we're doing this new edition and new rewrite, we're adding the vocabulary pop-ups, just like you'll find in most of our other courses. Let's scroll down and take a look at one of our interactive coding panels. And let me blow this up a little bit so it's easier to see on the recording. So the first thing you'll notice is we have color coding of the HTML. The other thing that you'll see very quickly is that the output panel here off to the right responds immediately to changes we make here on the left. So as soon as I type in color red here, you can see the red pops in. So this is instant feedback for the students. Any changes they make in the HTML is automatically reflected over here. We have automatic error checking as well. So let's say I forgot an angle bracket here in my HTML. You'll see some errors pop up that talk about unexpected characters and unexpected attributes, so the student knows there's a problem here. The other thing I'll point out is that we have automatic code completion, so if we want to add a new paragraph, we'll start with the opening tag, and you can see it popped out the closing tag there automatically, and we can simply type in our new content. Let's scroll on down to the bottom. Each of our lessons still has one or more work with me exercises. So these are opportunities for students to immediately practice the skills that they have learned. In the old course, these work with me's were required because the students were still incrementally building those large Raptors or Aquamaniacs projects. So that's not the case now. These work with me's follow the same style that all of our other courses follow, in that they are recommended, certainly, for students to gain practice, but they're not required, they're not graded, they're not part of the students' ongoing chapter activities. Scroll down a little bit, I'll point out one additional feature of our online editor. We do have the ability to separate out the CSS and HTML. So in this example, we've got a link to our global CSS file, and if the student clicks on the CSS tab, they've got that CSS tab right here. And we can type in rules. Let's add a H1 rule. And you can see there's automatic error checking again. There's a little warning that the rule is empty at the moment. We'll add color red, and changes you make to the CSS are automatically reflected here off in the output panel. So the interactive coding environment overall has gained some substantial improvements. Let's go down and take a peek at a chapter activity. As I mentioned, these chapter activities are now auto-graded. So let's pull up the activity instructions. And as I mentioned earlier, the Raptors and Aquamaniacs projects have been replaced by uniquely themed projects for each of the chapters. So students will experience a wide variety of content and subjects as they go through the projects. You can see a screenshot of what we expect. We'll give you some starting code here. And again, the starting code is available online. The reason we provide the starting code in the instructions as well is to support those students who may want to still work outside of our system. So if you have Dreamweaver or some other web authoring tool that you prefer to use, you can certainly do that. You'll just copy the starting code out, and then when you want to submit it for grading, you can copy that code back into the online activity. The activities still have the familiar detailed guidance, but since we're automatically grading the activities, we now provide a detailed rubric with points in the individual test cases that will be run, as well as hints for getting full credit. Okay, let's click on the activity link. In the old course, students would click on this activity link to manually upload some zip files. So now when you click on the activity link, you're going to see our familiar online project interface. So you'll see websites the students have submitted here. Teachers can get a preview to see what students are seeing by clicking on Teacher Preview. So here's the HTML. It has all the same power of the online IDE with the error checking and auto completion and everything that I've already demonstrated. You've got our CSS file here off to the right, and the output down here below. And if we scroll way to the bottom, you can see our familiar buttons for previewing and submitting online work. So if you click Preview, for example, we'll run all of our automated test cases, and you can take a look at the preview results to see what your score would be, as well as the individual test case results. So if we were looking for something specific in a CSS file or in an index file and we didn't find it, we would give you a little description of what was missing here, and you could go back to your code and correct that issue. Back here on the main activity page, if teachers want to take a look at the solutions, you can do that here with the View Solution. So you'll see the solution code that will meet 100% of the activity requirements. Naturally, when auto-grading some things, we are often looking for very, very specific content or properties, so the students will need to follow those instructions to get full credit. However, there are often opportunities for students to do creative work as well, so we provide notes on adding their own creative touches or their own personal styles that won't interfere with the auto grader. So that's a quick sneak peek of the major advantages and new features we're building into the new edition. Many of the other course elements will be very familiar with instructional videos, lesson quizzes, teacher's guides, and answer keys, and so forth. Everything that we do standard across all of our courses, you'll find here as well. We appreciate your interest in our new web design course, and as always, we're happy to answer questions. You can reach us by phone, through our website, or by email. Thanks for watching.